ask you to look at some of these pictures and tell me stories. Just feel free to go whatever direction you want. I'm not going to cut you off, and you're just going to talk.
Okay.
So, tell me about that first picture. Tell me about your grandparents.
Yeah, that's my grandma and my grandpa, uh, who were very special to me. We lived on the same street, and I loved going to see grandma um, when it was just the two of us. So that's Nana's mother and father. They're the Pintos. Um, and my grandpa was a real strict guy. You know, everybody had to toe the line, except when you go over, give him a hug and a kiss. And you'll notice a cigarette in his hand, and he was always smoking, which didn't seem to kill him because he lived to 92. So, um, and a little, it just went into my head. It has nothing to do with the picture. But they had a very close relationship. My grandma never really got to speak English, so her only way through life here was through grandpa, who did speak English. And they would eat off the same plate. They would have dinner and they would pick and set up the plate, the two of them, and they would proceed to eat, she here, him here, and the plate.
Huh.
And I was always so fascinated by that.
Just an old custom, you think?
No, I don't think so. I didn't see anybody else do it. It was their personal thing.
And she never learned English.
No,
Little
she
bits.
never learned to speak English. She understood English, and when I would talk to her, uh, if she said something to me, I would sometimes try to come back in Italian, and she would go, "No, no, 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 Americano, Americano, no, no Italiano, no, no, no." And unfortunately, that turned it off for me, that I wasn't allowed to say it. So it turned it off in my head. So she understood whatever I said to her, but she would only respond to me in Italian or broken English. But she couldn't have a conversation, really. And I always felt bad about that. But we used to have I spent a lot of time with her. And it was easier to go to grandma's house than to our home, because they were only on the second floor and we were on the fourth floor. So, but they were a very sweet, loving couple, and they did a good job. And the two of them were always dressed. They came out the door, they were dressed up, just like you see them. He always had a shirt and tie on, um, and he was a tailor, and he made men's suits. And he's the one who measured your suit and cut it and stuff, and he did a lot of it by hand. And I can't remember the name of the company, but they were well-known men's suit manufacturers. So I think he made a decent living, you know. And so we were at the end of Brooklyn, and he had to walk 3 blocks, get on the subway, go all the way up to I think he was on 37th Street in the Garment District by 7th Avenue. And I used to know when he would be coming home, and I would be waiting for him, and I'd see him coming down the street, and I would run to him. And he always had in his pocket these little candy. Did you ever hear of Sen? Yeah. And he used to give me Sen. But, I would go, Grandpa, Sen. Huh? Oh, Grandpa. I have to give him a hug and a kiss. And I go, more? No, that's all. And then we would walk. I would walk him home, let him off at his door, and then I would go home. But I wouldn't go home until Grandpa came home. So, and that was for most of my childhood, as long as we lived on West Ninth Street. And
is that where that picture is?
Yep, that picture is right in front of their building on the corner. There was a corner building, and it goes around this way, and it's greenery there. And their bedroom was up on the second floor, right over where they're standing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was where we always took pictures, all the pictures that we have from childhood. And the only one who had a camera was my Aunt Rose, my mother's youngest sister. The only one in the family who had a camera was Rose. So if she wasn't around, there was no pictures.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do the next picture.
That's me. That's Easter. I would say I was about 8 or 9. And I was always very proud of my hair. I used to brush it all the time. Grandpa, Sal, would say that you had to brush your hair to have beautiful hair. Where he got that from, I don't know. But so I spent a lot of time brushing hair. Now, do you know where I am in that picture?
Oh, tell me. Brooklyn.
I am in Brooklyn. I am at 1972 West 9th Street on the roof.
So that's the same house that your grandparents were pictured in front of.
No.
On the roof.
No, that was their building.
Oh.
1972 is my building.
Okay.
And we were on the top floor, so we would go upstairs to the roof. And see that railing there in the picture? We would sit, there's a picture of me sitting on that railing.
Yeah.
And we would hang over it and stuff. And so it was 2 buildings together, and there was a divider. And so we would play up there. We would run around and play up there and stuff. So, yeah, so we had a lot of fun up there. And not just my roof. There was other buildings the same way. So whoever we were playing with, we would say, let's go play on the roof and run around, play ball up there. Yeah, so.
Do you have another story about growing up there?
Yeah, well, we had a great time. We would, well, when there wasn't school, and when we would come home from school, first thing is we would do what we had to do, get our stuff, and run right back out and meet on the street. And we spent our time on the street all the time. And like I said, I would go to my grandmother's before I would go to my, if I had to go to the bathroom or if I was thirsty or something. And then Nana, if she needed anything, we were out on the street. We were in the back, but we had an alleyway next to our building. And she would, the kitchen window, and she would go, Ellie, Ellie. And you could hear her out on the street. And I would come running, yeah, Mom. And she'd throw me down something wrapped up with money to go buy some bread or milk or something. And you walk to the corner. There was a grocery store on the corner. I'd go and get the shopping, come home. Then I'd have to go upstairs, bring it to her. So, but, we were playing on the street. We jump rope, with hopscotch with the chalk. We would draw the squares on the thing. Across the street, the side of the building was open because there was a big space there with the garage from the other building. And so we used to play ball against that wall, throwing the ball against the wall, practicing. And on the corner where my grandparents' building was an avenue. We were on a street, so the streets were narrow, but the avenues were wide. And so the boys, the older boys, would play stickball on Stillwell Avenue there. And at that time, there weren't a lot of cars, so the streets were the playground. We didn't have to worry about cars. Sometimes we did have at that time, up through the end of the war, we did have horses, horses dragging wagons. There was the ragman, which nobody, do you know what the ragman is? Do you know what the ragman is?
No, tell me. Go ahead.
And he would come with his big wagon, and I believe he had 2 horses, and he would come down the street, ragman, ragman. He was collecting your rags. And whatever they did with them at that time. But if you had rags, you didn't throw them in the garbage. The ragman collected them. And I guess some kind of recycling.
It was probably in the war. Was that during the war?
Oh, yeah. This is during the war.
Yeah.
So they collected everything. Yeah. And he didn't have a motorized vehicle, so he still used his horses. Yeah. And then we had the Iceman. The Iceman. People who did not have a refrigerator had ice boxes. And the Iceman would come on a regular basis. He would take out these big blocks of ice, and these were horse-drawn wagons as well. And they were all packed like with straw. And then the big, the tongs for the ice. You pick them up like this and take them into the buildings to whoever needed them. Put them in their ice box and came back down. And we used to love to see the Iceman. That was like, and so then when he was walking everything, we would be running around him and joking around with him and stuff. And we would roller skate. I remember the year I got, for Christmas, I got my pair of roller skates. I think I was 6. And do you know what the roller skates were like then? You strapped them onto your feet, and you had a key to close the clamp around your toes. And there's the skates, and
You had shoes on, right?
had your own shoes on. Yeah, and you had to put your shoe in, it was wheel and like a platform and straps. And in the front by the, where the toe is, like in this part, there was a clamp that you turned this key to clamp around your shoe to hold you, and you had a strap around your ankle. And that's what you went skating with all over the place. And so then we'd love to be on the sidewalk and jump off the curb at a speed and go down the street. A lot of falls. And in those days, girls didn't wear pants. So you had a dress on. So when you fall, you are on your bare leg. I had many scraped knees.
Who's we?
Oh, my friends on the street. It was Barbara, Violet, what was the other? I can't remember the other girl's name. But there was quite a few of us. Barbara and Violet were my best friends, and then I can't remember the other girl's name. But girls, there was about 8 or 10 of us. And in addition to my friends, across Stillwell Avenue on 9th Street is another corner building. And in that building lived my cousin Helen with Aunt Rose and Uncle Larry and Tommy. and my Aunt Clara and Cookie, Mary, up on the top floor. And so they would come over and play with us too. So, or many times, since I was the oldest, I was in charge. I had to kind of mind the girls that they were. Yeah, so that's why Helen and Mary and I are so close still, is we had our first 10 years together. Well, no, not Mary. Mary, Cookie. She left when she was 8. And to this day, the pain in my heart when they took her away from me. And we took Aunt Clara and Cookie to the train, Penn Station. And I'll never forget that train pulling away and Cookie crying, not knowing where she's going. When he came back from the war, he stayed in California, or I think he was in California during the war. And he stayed there because he had a good job and stuff. And Aunt Clara, I think it was a good year before because she really didn't want to go. She didn't want to leave her family. We were all on one street. And finally, my grandfather, "You're going." End of story. Packed up and they went. So, yeah. And so then we didn't have telephones then, so we couldn't even talk to them. So it was really hard. Yeah. That was my first true heartbreak. And I mean heartbreak. I cried every night that they took Mary away from me. Cookie. Then she was Cookie. She was my Cookie.
How much younger was Cookie?
Cookie's 3 years younger than me. Helen was 2 years younger than me. So, yeah. But we had a lot of fun. We were free, and we didn't have to stay on the block. Aunt Dottie we were on West 9th Street. She was on West 6th Street. A lot of times I go, "You want to go see Aunt Dottie?" "Yeah, let's go." We'd see my cousin Mickey, and we go over there. And a lot of times Mickey would come over to play with us too. Or Aunt Dottie came over to see Grandma. And Aunt Rosie at that time was living with Grandma. So she got married, I was 8. So she got married in 1943. And then they got married, and then Uncle Nicky was the war. He was shipped out, so she lived with Grandma and Grandpa. And then she got pregnant with Nicky, so then he was born. And I got the job of having to walk Nicky in the carriage up and down the street, which I loved because everybody would go, "Oh, is that Nicky?" And there he was in the carriage, and everybody would get a kick. Well,
How
and
old were you then?
So they got married in 43, so 44. So I was 9, 10 years old, and then the war was over, and Uncle Tony came back, and with Aunt Cleta, and they had a baby, James, my cousin James, and they lived down the street a little bit. And because I always loved babies, I would go and see them, and I would take the two, James and Nicky, out. And Helen would come with me sometimes, and my friends. But we used to enjoy it was, instead of dolls, we had the kids.
Okay, next picture, please.
Oh, that's Grandpa Sal.
Tell me about Sal.
That's my dad. Look how handsome he is. I forget what that picture is from, but I think that picture is around the time I was born, in the 30s. Um, and of course, he came here from Italy. Um, and he didn't, did I, you know about when Nana and Grandpa, the same thing. When they came here, um, he was 11, I think, or 12. And when they went to school, because they didn't speak English, they were put in the first grade. And Grandpa, this young 11, 12-year old, he's here and the kids are here. And they're laughing at him because he can't speak English. And he was mortified and he wouldn't go to school. And so at that time, the truant officer would come by looking for him. They never could find him. Where he was, we don't know. But he was so humiliated he wouldn't go to school. And what Nana did go to school, but she hated it, and it was really like she was present, but she wasn't. She just tuned the whole thing out. And so their basic education is what they got in Italy. I still don't understand why, at their age, because they both came, I think Nana was, I think Nana was 12 and he was 11, something like that. But in that area, they don't have an accent. How did they do that? Right? They spoke Brooklynese, their English was definitely from Brooklyn, but no, right? You never got heard anything. How did they do that? I don't know. But the pressure, I guess, the experience in school and the pressure of speaking not the right language, basically, must have been that they must have practiced or something. They never said, they just wouldn't talk too much about it. It was a really difficult time for the both of them, who didn't know each other at the time, but it was a similar experience. And so if it was for them, it was for all of them who came at that time. And Aunt Clara never went to school when she got here. She went, the kids laughed at her, and she said, I'm never going back there. And she, at 14, went to work against her father. No, you don't have to work. No, I have to go to work. And it was really an interesting time. But Grandpa always helped his father and stuff. And him being the oldest, him and his sister Fanny being the oldest, his mother, as soon as they came, they went in, which they thought was a lovely apartment, which is called a railroad apartment, window in the front and window in the back and rooms in between, and the bathroom down the hall. But it was indoor bathroom. And they lived there for a year. And they thought it was a palace. Well, Grandpa did anyway, and the younger kids.
Was that when they left their parents' house on their own? Or
No,
was
no.
that with the family?
No, when they arrived here off the boat, they had
This is with the family.
With the family. There's Grandpa, who's the oldest, and Aunt Fanny, and Uncle Larry, and Aunt Connie. Aunt Connie was, I guess, 2 or 3 at this time. And then my grandmother had another baby, Helen, who was retarded and died when she was around 14 or 15. And they got off the boat. They got this apartment in Brooklyn. My grandmother, I don't know how they got their jobs, but my grandmother went to work and my grandfather went to work. and my father and Aunt Fanny took care of the young kids. And I guess that was another reason for him not to go to school, to take care of the kids and to take the kids to the school and stuff. But they were in charge. And you hear in Aunt Connie's tape, she's saying that they take care of the kids. And within, I think it was 2 years, and this is my grandmother, I mean, my grandfather was something, but my grandmother was the boss. And according to Grandpa, that they saved enough money to buy a house. Well, it was a 2-family house, and with her brother, they shared the cost and they bought a house. And they moved into their own house within 2 years of being here. And that was from working. They just went to work. And the whole family had to work and all contributed and everybody did everything. So it was a working unit, which is really, I don't think that would fly today. But anyway, yeah, and Grandpa, according to Grandpa, from when he came here and he saw where they were living, and he even when coming in the harbor and he saw the Statue of Liberty, he was so excited and to be in America. And from the day he got here, he just loved it here. And how many times when they got older, I offered to take him back to Italy. He says, there was nothing there. I don't want to go back there. We didn't have anything. He had no interest to go back. This is my home. This is where I live. I belong. And he was a scrapper, and he was a bit of a bad boy. He would get in trouble. But yeah. He was Grandpa. Yeah. And I guess I would have to say his mother and father, I think about, she died when I was 5. And it's hard to explain the memory. It's not like I don't have a memory of her. I have a feeling of her. And I don't know how to describe it. When I think about her, I just feel like her presence is around me. And and I don't know if it's me putting it in or the memory, but that it was like a smiling face, something like that, And they say he looked like her, and the couple of pictures we have of her, he resembled her. But of course, my grandfather I knew until he passed away. Janine was already born, so it was a different thing. But she died when I was 5. She had breast cancer. Yeah. And she died after Helen, the retarded one, died. She died. They died within a year of each other, something like that. I mean, I don't remember too much. I was only 5, but just what I'm told. Yeah, but Grandpa was a family man. He was all about taking care of his brothers and sisters and helping out his mother and father. They were, like I said, they were a unit. They all worked together. But he went out there and did his little things. Gambled. He learned gambling on the street. And like I said, he didn't go to school. We know he read, right? He was very good with math. So I think all of that was what he got in the years of school in Italy and what he picked up on his own. He is really a self-educated person. And Nana too. you didn't feel they were illiterate in any way, and they weren't. They could read and write, and they both read books. He read the newspaper every day, picked up the Brooklyn Daily. Well, it was the Brooklyn Daily News, then it became the New York Daily News. Yeah, the Daily News, and he got it every day, and he went through it. He had to know everything. And then, of course, when TV and radio, we listened to the radio every night together. Yeah, and he was a great dad. He was. I can only say he was always very gentle with me. He would buck heads with my brother. They would kind of clash. But with me, I was like his little princess, you know. And I don't think he ever called me princess, but he, treated me like a little special package. Not my mother.
Okay, next picture.
There she is in all her glory. Yeah, so that's in Astoria. That's not in Brooklyn. Yeah, Mom. So, I love her dearly, but we never got along. She was authoritarian, and what you do, and I have to say I was a good kid. I didn't, I pretty much did what I was told. I guess I did little things or didn't do things when she wanted me to do things. I was a kid. But I always felt she was too hard. But now, as a grown-up, raising children, I think she was worried, that she didn't want anything to happen to you. And her way was methodical. And oh, sorry. I keep talking to Barbara. And she, how do you, I can't, I really can't find the words to explain our relationship. She was very loving, hugging and kissing and, taking care of you and all of that, providing and all. But on the other hand, she was very demanding. And I guess the difference between Grandpa, who was a cupcake, a softie, and, oh, that's okay, honey. And her saying, no, now, it just, I guess I liked Grandpa's way better. But she was a great parent. She really, made sure that we did what we were supposed to do. And I think another reason I had a traumatic event with her. So when I was in kindergarten, they had a knit, the bugs in the hair, and they had to cut. The thing was, your parent had to cut your hair, and I had long hair.
Very proud of.
And I was very proud of my hair. And I went running around the house, no, no, no. And she's running after me. You come back here. No, no. I remember this. And running into her bedroom, running around the living room. Why I never went out the door, I don't know, because I guess I figured I wasn't allowed to or whatever, because I was pretty obedient. So then I did the stupid thing, and I went into the closet. So now I was trapped, and she came in and grabbed me and pulled me out, and she put me in a chair, and she tied me to a chair, and she cut my hair. off with me screaming the whole time. No, not my hair. So, uh, and I still have a curl I saved. I had, she used to, every day, I had the what do you call it, the banana curls? She'd do my hair every day. And I was so proud of my curls. And they had to go. and, and unfairly now, I think I resented her because she took away my curls. And I think part of me was always, no, no. And so that was our relationship. But we were very close. You know, I've always been around Anna. We, lived near her, never went away from her. And we always had this little bumping, but, hug and kiss, and everything was fine. And her, when she came from Italy, like I said, and again, the same situation. Oh, you want me to tell the story about Nana and that they were left in Italy? So when when her parents came to Italy, Aunt Clara and Nana were the two oldest children, and they had two younger children. One was an arm baby, Aunt Dottie, and Uncle Tony was only, a toddler. And they only had enough money for the four of them, and Grandma and Grandpa and Dottie and Uncle Tony. And Nana and Aunt Clara were left in Italy. Nana was sent to live with my grandmother's sister and husband, and Aunt Clara was sent to Grandma's mother and father, who had a farm out of town somewhere. So not only were they left, but they were left apart, and so they didn't get to see. I'm sure my mother's aunt, I don't know her name, went to see her mother where Aunt Clara was, but on a daily basis, they didn't see each other. And Grandma and Grandpa came here to Italy. His grandpa's two older brothers were here, and that's who brought them over. You needed a sponsor at that time. And they were here for a year to get enough money to pay for passage for the two girls to come over. So they came over a year later by themselves on the ship, which was a very traumatic crossing. 2 weeks on the ship, all the way down in the bottom with the bunks, like this.
And how old were they?
So Aunt Clara, I believe, was 13, and Nana was 11. They were 2 years apart. So then that's right. And Grandpa was 12 when he came, and Nana was 11. So the two girls came over by themselves, and they were down in the bottom, and the both of them said they were by the kitchen, and the smell of the cooking and everything, and in the tight bunks, they didn't spend any time down there. They stayed up on deck, but they had to go down to go to sleep. So they had 2 weeks of, really, and people. So my great grandmother, when she brought them to the ship, the aunt and the grandmother took them. I don't know who actually took them, but they had paid this woman who was coming over with her daughter to watch over them. And my great grandmother had made a basket of food for them to have on the ship. That woman kept the food, didn't give any to my mother or my grandmother, and ignored them totally. Had nothing to do with them. They never saw her. And when they found out, because when they got here, and my grandma, said, "Where's the lady who?" And they said, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, no, there was this lady, was supposed to." We don't know. So, they were really left on their own devices on the ship for 2 weeks, these young girls. And it affected both of them. Mary, my cousin Mary, said, "My Aunt Clara would not talk about Italy or the crossing or anything. I don't want to talk about that." No, she tried to get information from, background. "I will not talk about it. I won't talk about it." She was, from my mother telling me that my Aunt Clara, the whole time she was with her, that year, was miserable and just was angry that she wasn't with her mother and father, and what was just, and so she shut it out. She wanted no part of that memory. My poor Aunt Clara, yeah. You met Aunt Clara too, yeah, the little sweetheart. But she wouldn't talk about Italy, and she wouldn't talk about coming over, Mary said. Anytime she asked her, she goes, "I don't talk about that. I don't know. Go away." But my mother filled in for her. So that's the story. And you could see why my aunt wouldn't talk about it. She had nothing but trauma. But then when they came again, then it's the family unit. They're the older girls, and they helped out. But my grandmother Pinto didn't go to work at all. She stayed home, and then she had Aunt Rose and Uncle Louie here, and I think she lost a couple in there. There was a few births. Oh yeah, Uncle Louie. His real name was Carmine, but they called him Louie because before he was born, there was another child who was Louis, and they all loved him. He was a darling child, and my mother especially. She said he was my Louis. I took care of him. I wouldn't let anybody go near him, and I guess in his first year or something, I think he was over a year old. Whatever he got sick and he died, and it apparently was a long, like a week or two where he was really pneumonia or something like that. And so then when my Uncle Louis came along, he apparently looked just like the first Louis. And so they go, "Oh, Louis's back." And so they called him Louis, but he was actually named Carmine. But who was Uncle Louis? So
He's still Louis, right?
And he's still Louis. Well, I think he actually did change his name legally to Louis Carmine. So, yeah, because well, and I think it was also my mother. Her name was Elena, but she was called Lily, right? And so when she was a little girl in Italy, my grandmother's sister, Lily, died. And she was very loved by everybody. And so they decided to call my mother by the name Lily after the first Lily died. And that's how she was called Lily. They ignored that she was given another name. So I said, "Well, it's a family that changes names. That's it."